wherever or which part of the world you're joining us from. Glad to have you here. We'll just begin in a couple of moments. All right, so we're live on YouTube as well. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining PowerToFly for this special chat and learn. And today we'll be covering the journey from zero to PMF, the global playbook for product market fit with our amazing speaker, thought disruptor, as he shares the strategies that have helped founders across 6 continents build thriving companies that resonate deeply with their audiences. Now, before I get started, I just have some quick housekeeping that I'd love to focus your attention to, and then we'll get right into that. All right, so on your screen, you should be able to see our code of conduct. It looks like a hell lot of text, but to sum it up, it just says that don't be a jerk. Please approach this conversation in a kind and thoughtful manner, and we'll have a great time. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to DM me in the chat, and me and my team will look into that. All right, so moving on. We ask to all of our participants, we ask you to participate on your cameras, and you can always put any of your questions that you have in the chat, and me or somebody from my team will pick those up and will make sure to ask a speaker about those. And by the way, this session is being recorded, so we'll email you a rewatch link in a couple of days, or you can find it soon on the PowerToFly site and YouTube as well. In case you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll make sure to ask those to our speaker and get your questions answered. So with all of that and with all the housekeeping now done, let's move to our amazing speaker. Hello, Arcui. So, hey, Arcui. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'd like to introduce all of you to today's featured speaker, Arcui. So Arcui Usoara is a global brand strategist and board advisor to founders, funds, and venture firms worldwide, with projects across 6 continents and impact on 10,000 plus businesses. He specializes in taking companies from idea stage to 100 million ARR by building brand ecosystems that thrive even in saturated markets. Welcome, Arcui, and let's dive into the conversation. But before that, is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about you?
I mean, when I'm not spending my time scaling companies, I'm either spending it with my dogs or rescuing dogs, but I think we can cover that later.
All right. So, Arcui, before we move forward into the conversation, I'd love to know more about your journey. How did you start? And how did you get towards this current status where you're helping companies go from or figure out their go-to-market strategies or product market fit. So let us know about your journey from the start, and let's take it from there.
I won't get started from where I went to high school and all of those things. I'll keep it more on topic. But I think one of the things, and this might even answer some of the questions some people might have, is that the main reason I have been able to be where I am right now, but also scale constantly and go beyond what was planned, expected, and achieve results, was mainly by letting myself thrive outside the box. Really, and I'm not saying out of the box thinking and all of those things, but rather just enable myself to do what was not just expected from my work role, but rather truly understanding what an industry requires, an audience needs. And that honestly has been a fundamental element in everything I've done, from starting out as a designer who was approached by a lot of famous companies to understand how is my work standing out, how is it so unique, and helping companies, because I started my journey in graphic design, brand identity, yet it wasn't just about creating identities to look pretty. It was truly impacting companies in ways that even the companies didn't expect it to work. And through that, going and discovering something called strategy, finding out that a lot of the stuff out there is really just cookie cutter tactics. So taking a different approach, looking at things from a different perspective, and infuriating and getting frustrated by so many things, but then also diving into elements and understanding what exactly can be done, how we can approach this in a unique manner. And once that was done, scaling from helping companies in Fortune 50s, Fortune 500s, and startups across the globe to realizing that a lot of the things out there that companies can really do to grow and scale is unnecessarily being gatekept. It's something that you don't require millions of dollars of funding to execute. You just need the right strategies. And so choosing to change how Achelous and the House of Achelous functioned and pivoting from being one for the leaders to just making it for visionaries, people, even if they don't have the best funding, but if they have a strong idea. And so as we started with that, I think it's been about 5 years since I've been working more closely with VCs and founders across the globe and accelerators who tend to bring me on as an active mentor advisor for their portfolio companies. And then from there, working with these companies and helping them grow and scale. The constant factor has been to just embrace the pivot, not fight it, but truly start preparing yourself to venture into the pivot even before it takes full effect.
Got
Yeah, I hope
excellent.
that
Yeah.
wasn't too worded.
Not really, not really. So you mentioned House of Icarus and the startup accelerators that you've been a part of. So zoning on House of Icarus. So can you share a pivotal moment from your early career that basically shifted your perspective on maybe brand strategy and that led to your founding of House of Icarus?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things that helps us run House of Achelous and all of its different ventures and all the other ventures I'm either a director or an advisor at is understanding that our role is not just to do what is given to us in terms of a checklist, but rather it's a component for not just other teams to work with and execute, but a part of a larger vision. You see, most people have a basic to-do list, they have a lot of elements on their project management board that they need to do these things. But one of the most common challenges, and this is something even Fortune 500 struggle with, is that sometimes the product team is building something that the marketing has left marketing about, a month ago. The marketing team is telling stories about something that no one is even focused on buying, but users are now coming for that. Whereas the operational team is improving processes that no one cares about, and the CEO is still fighting towards a vision that nobody is even aware of. And so what made us different and what first helped us really achieve it and then made it so that we could do it for others as well was aligning on the elements of what is going to be our true vision. And I know a lot of people aim to look at it as vision statements and stuff like that. Those statements come later on. At the end of the day, those statements are just to really remind you of what the vision is, not the essence of the entire vision all at once. But when you have a strong vision, you know that your journey is never going to end, because if you feel like your vision can be achieved in a few years, that's just a long-term mission. Think of it as a game. Everything you're doing is to get to the next level, to achieve, to either save Princess from Brazil, or, get to the top of the mountain if you're playing whatever game you are. But you don't just go ahead and do that. You need to do your levels, and missions are what you're doing to get there. Every mission has submissions, and once you complete the main mission, things change towards a new thing. But the vision is the peak of the mountain that you're constantly climbing towards. The only difference is that the more closer you get, the more you can actually see, because now the clouds have cleared out and you realize there's a lot more further to go. When you don't have a vision, it's very dismissive, because every time you get a new idea, you're like, let me work on this. Instead of fighting it, instead of scrutinizing yourself to really understand, is this even the right direction you need to move in? So that played a crucial role to truly see the large picture and to make sure that we're contributing towards that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So going over to for all of our founders who are present in the audience today, we'd love to know about, more about your experience of advising through 52 plus accelerators, and you're quite involved with Founders Institute. So I'd love to know what has been your go-to strategy or approach in guiding founders from idea stage to finding PMF, and hopefully for all of our founders to 100 million ARR. So,
Of
yeah.
course. Yeah. So leaving everything after 1 million and let's focusing on the initial stages. When I work with founders, especially for those who are considering in the advisory role, this is much more from that perspective. You need to realize that no two founders are the same, because founders, by their definition, are people who have founded something in their journey, regardless of if they had previous experience in that or not. They find themselves excited, enticed by an opportunity, and driven towards something that they need to work towards. That forces them to be like, I need to really work on this. I need to create this space. But sometimes they might be doctors, sometimes they might be lawyers, sometimes they might be ex-founders, or it might be people who have left their own old companies because just for some reason they felt like, you know what, I can do a better job. Regardless of the reason, you can't expect to work with them in the same way because people make decisions in different manner. There's a bit of nurturing that's already there. So it's really about meeting them halfway, but also letting them know that they need to work on communicating with you. That has been a very crucial role because I can help companies scale. But if they're not willing to seek out, if they're not willing to tell me that this doesn't make sense to me or this doesn't align with the way I've been prepping for things, it really is of no point because then you're just screaming at a wall. Whereas in terms of, growing in from with helping companies grow, scale revenue, let that be getting to 10,000, $100,000 MRR to then, a million ARR, 10 million, and all of those things. The most common thing is understanding what your audience is really seeking. And this plays a very crucial role in getting into saturated markets as well, because the more you can build with your audience, not just for them, not just assuming what they need, but really keeping them involved, the better your chances are for growing and scaling. I often ask this to my cohorts whenever I join a new chapter or whenever there's a new set of founders that have joined us. I ask them, how many of you would love to have PMF by the end of the cohort? A lot of them raised their hand, of course. And then I asked them, how many of you are willing to push your launch date by a few months to still achieve PMF? A lot of them tend to fall down. And I'm like, here's the thing. Till now, you haven't really sat and learned what your users need. What is it that they're really looking for in a market? If you're just going and building what you want, then you only have one core user. You might find a lot of people, but you don't have a growing roadmap. But if you really want to grow and scale, take a minute and understand what your audience really needs. Do you just want another company doing the same thing? Or maybe there's just a very tiny micro pivot that you can make, but every user out there is just starving for it, is just hoping that someone does this. And now that you have just spent some time listening to them, understanding what does the product need to do, but also what the customer experience needs to be like, you have a lot more better chances of launching because now when your audience sees this, they're not just seeing a product they want, but you have insights that can infuse your marketing, your messaging, your sales, and everything you do to resonate with them, for them to feel like, I'm so glad someone is actually hearing me out. I'm so glad there's actually a product that does what I need instead of just another fixed up solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key takeaways for me, from um, all the things that you spoke was basically to identify that there's a problem because many of the times the founders are so deep in the weeds, that they're building something up, and at this stage or at this early stage, like you're bogged down and you feel like the omniscient, like you see everything, and at times it might become way too overwhelming to even see that okay you have your blinkers on basically, and you at
Absolutely.
times it's amazing to have somebody in a mentorship role or in through all of these cohorts or through all of these accelerators that takes a bird's eye view and gives you okay, I think this is somewhere you haven't put your attention to, so this is somewhere you should look and figure that out. So thank you so much, Arcui, for shedding light
Of
on that.
course. Yeah.
All right. So moving towards, so we have received a couple of audience questions, during through our site. So when folks were filling in, so they've shared a whole lot of audience questions, and there was a common theme about achieving PMF amidst the AI disruption, amidst the AI age that we're living in. So one of the question that goes, it goes like this, that in the context of AI disrupting entry-level and mid-level jobs in the global market, what pitfalls or what, the steps should software startups avoid when seeking a product market fit? Because, what things to do, most people can, figure it out, but, what things to not do, or, things to completely avoid to not go into a wrong direction. So yeah, please take us away. Okay, it seems you're frozen. Just a moment. It seems there's a technical issue and guys feed. Okay, so I think we have lost a speaker. So let me just, there's some technical issue and Yeah, so there was some issue with the joining in and his coming back in a moment. We'll be resuming in just a second. We're trying to get connected with Arcui. So the internet connection got a bit unstable for a moment. So speaker is joining back in just about a moment. There's some issue with the Zoom. So yeah, we should be able to see him in just about within a minute.
Hey there, sorry for that. There's nothing worse than technical issues interrupting a good flow.
Absolutely. Let me just add you to
Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries. Cool then. So resuming the flow. So we were in the AI shifts and what are the things. So I think let me just reread the question again because I
Of course.
think you got cut off in the middle. So this is one of the audience questions that we received. In the context of AI disrupting entry level and mid level jobs in the global market and specifically global tech market, what are the steps or what are the pitfalls should software startups avoid when seeking a product market fit?
So one of the main things you need to realize with that is you need to start looking at AI from the perspective of enablement. AI at the end is to help you overcome certain challenges. Now, if you look at it as taking your job, of course, it's going to do that. But it also means that it can help you do the things that you wouldn't normally have the time to do. So instead of looking at it as a competitor, rather look at it as an ally. We have had so many companies of ours, but also my own company, Iaculus, has been able to scale productivity, impact without actually losing out on our talent. None of my team members have been fired. In fact, we ended up hiring more people. The challenge is that when companies look at AI to replace them, and that mainly happens again when you don't have a long enough roadmap. Because if you just have, hey, if we achieve this, that's it. If we build this product out, that's it, then you don't know what to do next. You're not really spending time discovering what your market needs. And a market is never going to be satisfied with one product. A thing to know about, business is that when you're a startup, you end up having a relationship with your audience where they keep coming to you for problems. You solve one problem and they're like, hey, thank you for solving this. We have newer problems. Now, in general relationships, that's bad. But in business, that's good. But if you're not spending time listening to your audience, what ends up happening is that we want to build our MVP. There are a couple of AI tools. You may downsize from a team of 10 to a team of 5, and you build it out. But what do you do next? What features do you build next? AI is going to accelerate your pathway. But if that runway is very short, it is going to lead to, there's not going to be a takeoff because it is going to stop. You're not going to be able to proceed further. So to startups, I say, if you're building with AI, don't look at it as a way to just do a quick fix thing. It can, of course, help you with that. But now look at it from a perspective of everything you felt that you had to hold back because you just didn't think you had the support or facilitated tools to achieve that is now there. So think beyond, think further ahead. And to the team members, I ask you to look at how you can work with AI instead of seeing it as someone who can replace you. Imagine if you had the right team members, how further would you be able to scale? And I've met a lot of people where they have been able to move into proper leadership roles as well by just managing different AI tools and understanding how to look at things from a different perspective, seeing it from a bit more, not just from a bird's eye point of view, but really seeing the larger picture, and then facilitating a larger impact by working with various automations, agents, and larger models that can truly help you in your journey.
One of the other questions that we have had, and this is a question for me as well, uh, with the recent AI tools like Claude Code and like a million other tools flooding the market, and and every week there's a new tool coming in, and it's a dozen of new tools coming in every other week, and every tool is competing for our attention. So in this current scenario, how can founders in the software space validate AI integrated product ideas or AI first product ideas early to accelerate from zero to PMF, especially with trends like Gen AI automating workflows and with all of these coding assistants? So, before you commit to something, what should be the, what should I say, filter or criteria to, okay, this is a good idea, this isn't.
Yeah,
How should they make that classification? And, what are some practical steps from all of your
of course.
experience?
Yeah, so with so many AI models out there, there are always going to be different parameters based upon the work you're doing, the industry you're in, but also the problems you're trying to solve. And the more work you do in that, you tend to identify what you need help with. Let that be just a video gen model that you're using, and you're like, how consistent can it be? Or if it's a coder where it's not over engineering things, how it's really looking at, the large problems and how it's going about identifying, sequencing, and executing the different tests that you end up developing. And think of it as working with an intern who is way too excited or energetic, but also needs some guidance. So you need to see that when you have these various AI tools, there are a couple of ways. One, of course, is that, identifying your basic set of parameters, that things that you care about that will help you achieve your goals much more quickly without ruining your workflow in a constant back and forth of just engaging with AI instead of moving forward. Once you have defined these things, you need to start looking at it from the perspective of, is this just another tool that's just going back and forth and retrieving certain context, or is it actually going beyond that? There are AI models out there that can do a lot of amazing things. And then there are AI models out there that are very basically just wrappers with a system prompt that's helping it navigate its execution. And then there are proper, well-established LLMs that are being developed for more industry-specific usage, for more executable tasks that are more specific to what kind of impact you're creating. I work with a lot of medtech companies, so we come across a lot of medtech trained AI models that are heavily built on medical data that helps us execute our work in terms of let that be reading scans, identifying things from a third person's point of view without even getting a medical scan in, but just by noticing waves or motor nerve activity and stuff like that because of how well it is trained. And then there are approaches where you're passing to large databases. You have an AI and it's being trained on certain databases, but it's not really infused into it. And so you need to really understand based upon what you're trying to achieve. Can this model work with this? Can it execute on these tasks? But also, what are the other models out there that will it need to collaborate, work together with, or will it actually need to execute and try to face a lot of friction because it just doesn't compile well with each other or your infrastructure doesn't exist? I try to find models that are very well tuned and adjusted to do multiple tasks, but also can be compressed and don't lose their ability to deliver better solutions just because they're a much more shorter model, and focus on the larger tasks at hand because that's very important when you're making an AI-based decision. But once you have found them, while I do encourage constantly keep looking, don't get yourself involved in the trend of, hey, new AI came, let me rebuild my whole workflow. Don't do that, but rather just, find your systems that work for you and experiment with them, grow them, see what you can do. And when the time does come, when you find a better AI tool and you have been experimenting on the side, it's good to move away. A lot of my friends have recently moved from Claude to Z and even Kimi, and there are a lot of amazing tools out there. Whereas, a lot of people are still staying with ChatGPT because they're just more comfortable with that. A lot of them have seen certain differences, it has saved them cost, and a lot of decisions. But also, some people have just been spending so much time just testing new AI models that even the primed market that was once ready to have them, once ready to invite them, has moved away because other competitors have been able to deliver. So you need to make sure you have a good balance of testing and losing yourself in testing.
So in your experience, can you like point all of our audience to some of the tools or resources that they should check out, or some of the models that you have found useful in your workflow, or in the workflow of all the companies that you're advising?
So I'm very sector agnostic, but the one good place for really finding great models is MarkTech Post. It's a really great newsletter where there's constant research being done. Then obviously there are setting up Google alerts. Right now, Google is kind of primed to be aware of what you're looking for. So if you just keep looking for certain blogs again and again, it kind of trains itself to give you notifications on, hey, here are new AI models. But the main thing is really finding industry experts, pioneers who are investing proper time in building one model, training those models rather than just launching everything just because they can. And so for me, I really love to work with Moonshot and their Kimi family, as well as with Gwen, because there are some really great vision and OSR models that I use for a lot of our companies because we really try to have a lot of cross engagement be done. And so OSR models, as well as just, models that are very good with vision identification are really great. And then there are companies like ZAI that have spent a lot of time with their GLM 4.5V and thinking, where even though it's a very big model, it is able to deliver on some immense work very quickly. So my way for really identifying models is waiting for certain dust to settle and then to still see if this model is still pioneering, if it's still able to deliver. I don't make quick changes because that ends up wasting a lot of my time. So whenever a model comes, even if it's a new trendy model or if it's an open source model, I tend to wait out and see what people are saying about it, see how its quality has been. We faced this with some models where when they came out, they were so amazing. It felt like we should move on to them. But after a while, when the dust settled, they reduced the GPU access to these models. And so the quality reduced very quickly. And so the APIs were worth nothing. Rather, the previous models still function better because of the data they were already trained on. So I really love to depend on existing models and try to parse different models to work with them rather than changing the entire infrastructure. But it's really based upon the larger foundation we're trying to build.
Got it. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, just to summarize, like not all that shines is gold.
Yeah.
The age-old wisdom still remains in the age of AI. So while we might have all the good models, or there might be with all their bells and whistles coming in every week, but just wait and see if your actual workflow actually needs a change. If there are like commensurate benefits to switching to a model or switching to a new workflow. If there is, then jump the ship. Otherwise, just stay put and observe. That's basically like the crux of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So moving on to another audience question. This is basically about brand ecosystems.
Mhm.
What strategies do you suggest for differentiating a brand in saturated markets, using customer psychology or any other tools that you might deem fit?
Absolutely. So When it comes to really standing out in saturated markets, is that the first main thing you need to realize is that saturation is a good thing. It doesn't mean that a market is no longer interested. It means that a market is heavily primed and very much really looking for a new tool. Why, you ask? Let's say if there was one company that heard all of the market needs, and then the remaining hundreds or 10,000 companies just dissolved, because if one company is able to deliver everything and if all the users are excited, satisfied, and they feel like this is the one thing they need, the other companies won't have a way to make revenue. They wouldn't be able to exist. And so they would dissolve. But that's not the case. Saturation means that people are migrating. Users are constantly migrating. They try out solutions, it doesn't align with them. They try new products, it doesn't match how they make decisions. It doesn't help them get what they need to get, just like how we discussed with AI models, all that glitter isn't gold. And so if you're seeing a market is saturated, there's no better indicator to really understand what your users need instead of just going and building. If you go and build, you're just another element that is saturating the market further. But instead, if you're seeing a market is constantly saturated and you do some research, you try to understand what is it that the audience is seeking, what's making them want to migrate away, what has been a recent acceleration in companies where their turnover rate has started to increase very quickly when it comes to customer lifetime value and all the other elements. And you start to realize that XYZ features or XYZ things of a company are really failing, are not able to truly meet the market expectations. It's not about, priming yourself up to be the best from your competitors. At the end of the day, it's really about helping your audience grow through you. One common saying I have with my companies is that you're a stepping stone. They don't come to spend time with me just because they want to have a fun conversation. They're not paying me for that. They're spending time with me because they see themselves growing through me. Same with our accelerators. And I'm sure all of you over here aren't here because you're just like, hey, I have a free hour. There's a random Zoom going on. You're here because you see yourself growing through this engagement, through this conversation, and through Power2Fly's content. And so Power2Fly is a stepping stone for you. You're able to grow through this. Just like that, what kind of a stepping stone are you for your audience? And to truly be able to identify that, you need to focus on being different for your audience. You need to start being different with them. You see, they do not care how you're amazing from your competitors, because more often than not, most users aren't aware of your competitors. I can name 20 AI models, and most of you won't care about them. Even if you did, you wouldn't care to explore because you're satisfied with what you have right now, hopefully. And so when you're looking for really building with your audience, you need to understand that you need to first start by focusing on four elements of differentiation. And it needs to be all four. It can't just be one of the four. How's your process different? How's your outcome different? How's your experience different? And how's the long-term impact different? And all of these should focus on your users. That means, how's the process of utilizing your services different from what they normally go through? How are the outcomes different from what they normally achieve? How's the overall experience different from what they would end up? And how's the larger impact of constantly using your solutions different from what they would normally get or where they're currently stuck at? Because they're not going to look at you and be like, oh, it's better than XYZ. They're going to say, it's better than what I'm struggling with, where I'm stuck at. And a lot of them are going to make that decision to move on, to choose to go with you when they feel like you're uniquely positioned to be different for them, to be different for what they need. So you need to understand the best way to stand out is understanding what your audience needs and differentiating yourself so that you can really be positioned to help them grow through you. That be building a feature or designing the customer experience to how they make decisions, what is their desired experience, how do they look for demand matching, how do they define success, as well as the desired outcomes.
Got it. So one follow-up question, in that flow, is basically, when there are established players in any market, or if that market is saturated. So there are some key players, there are some level 2 players, and the market is fully fulfilled to its brim. So that point, when you're in your sales cycle or in your engagement cycle, how should you handle objections that okay, shall we go with this? When the client says that, okay, these are the companies are also providing. So how should a company or a founder handle objections in a saturated market? And what are some like practical actionable tips to showcase your difference, in the real world?
So one thing you need to realize is that in larger enterprise sales, more often than not, when people have agreed to come on to an interview with you to explore this product, if they're actually asking you this question at that point, that means they're really not here to buy from you. They're just wasting your time because an actual user, when they're there, they don't want to know because they wouldn't waste time otherwise. They wouldn't waste their time if they're satisfied with something. They want to know how can you help them. And if they feel that you can, then they've already booked that call. But then there are still going to be users who actually are interested, but they have to make larger decisions. They have to answer to someone. And in that, instead of just throwing yourself out there and getting into this spree of I'm better than this, I'm better than that, I can do this, I can do that, ask them when it comes to executing or achieving whatever it is you're trying to build, what is the most determining factor that helps you make a defining decision? What is your desired experience of buying and going through a customer experience and achieving certain goals? Rather than trying to answer just about everything, ask them the question that they need the answer for. Ask them what is it that they need to know. So a good example I often bring up is that insurance. Two people can sell you $1 million worth of insurance, but with one, you have to bang your head for 10 months to get a basic claim. And with the other, you get on a call, they approve everything, and you're happy. One influences your decision. One experience is more desirable than the other. So it's not just about defining outcome or desirable success, but rather understanding what is the desired experience. If you're in a particular niche, let's say you're a startup and you're a startup that's globalizing, you need insurance that's specific for that. Amazing. So if a company chooses to provide a tailored experience for that, it's much more lucrative for you to go ahead and make a decision with them. But if you go ahead and say that, oh, we cover so much, we give all of these things, both parties tend to give you $1 million worth of insurance. At the end, you do have that. But with the other, you're banging your head. It's not an experience that you're excited about. It's rather frustrating. So people make decisions more than just about defining outcomes or success, but first about, is this a desired experience? But also, does it match with the way I like to make decisions? And the more you know about how your audience makes decisions, the more you're able to deliver better. So when someone is asking you, well, I have been using XYZ, how do you stand out over here? How are you able to help us achieve? Instead of going and saying these XYZ about your company, ask them, well, what's the main thing that's kind of concerning you with your existing experience? What's causing you to want to seek something out? I would love to be clear about what I'm trying to say to you so that when I do give you an answer, it aligns with what you're looking for rather than me missing the shot, even though I might have been able to give you what you needed. So if you can tell me what's influencing you, and then you can do one of two things. You might have the perfect answer, or you can tell them, this is not exactly what we're delivering, but this is what we are doing that's closest to you. I've been with interviews on companies where I'm trying to look for new softwares for one of my portfolios or the other. And sometimes they tell me that, hey, we can't deliver this right now. That's not even in our roadmap for the months to come. And that tells me that they're not willing to just make false promises. They're not just doing anything to just get a sale and have me leave later on, but rather they're telling me what they're planning on doing. And then they go ahead and add saying that, but if you're looking for something more specific for this, we are an ideal solution for you because our systems are trained to do this. Our solutions are built in this space. So if you're feeling still dissatisfied, our programs can work with your existing solutions to make sure that your current operators are still able to deliver what you need. But on top of that, down the road, we might make recommendations for other tools that work with us and everything else. And if we do end up building this, you'll be the first one to know. And that's much better than getting a false promise saying that, yeah, we're doing that. And then you sign up, you pay 200K for the yearly subscription, and there's nothing.
Absolutely. So basically, you just flip the script and ask the other person, or, ask the other party, what are the influencing, like
Yeah,
factors that, that will take you to either accept this decision of moving on board or, totally decline and move the separate ways. Good.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So moving further, So we have a question on global, cultural and regional differences. So for
Yeah.
startups who are building out of one region and they are building for the world or building, a solution where, the predominant user base might be residing in another location or another region of the world. So in those cases, in your experience, what cultural or regional differences in markets across the continents have you observed that affect achieving PMF, and how can startups adapt to those?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. PMF will obviously change based on the industry you're in. So I don't want to give you guys a cookie cutter thing that, hey, this is what works if you're launching in Japan, if you're scaling in Korea, or if you're launching in Europe tomorrow. I don't want to give you that. But in general, the main thing I recommend all of my portfolio companies is one, even if you end up getting an audience from across the globe, first prioritize, even if you're expanding globally, which local market are you focusing on globally? Let's say you're based in India or you're based in Japan and you're planning on launching in Southern California. Understand, how does the audience over there make decisions about investing in a solution? What is their desired experience? And make sure that from your list of features and functionalities and everything that you have, what becomes the hero? Stripe does this very well. Stripe exists in many countries, and so while their features are the same, the one they choose to hero is different based upon who they're targeting, but also where they're targeting. Because when you're targeting, it's not just about a local market or a location, but also the stage of the company they're in, the current challenges they face. Someone doing 1 million ARR has a hell of a lot of different challenges than someone doing 100 million ARR. They make different decisions. They have different things to consider. Now, your product might be able to facilitate across the board, but if you're going with the same approach, the same messaging, it's not going to work. So, firstly, be very specific to who you're reaching out to and what is their main and most recurring challenge, and how can you hero yourself to enable this for them, to enable them to overcome that glass ceiling. And what do you need to communicate for that specifically? We came across Dropbox's site recently for McLaren. And so their website, everyone knows what Dropbox does. It's about storing and sending files and sharing it across. But when it came to marketing themselves for the F1, they were like, hey, here's what we can do specifically for you, from promo photos to stats, all being shared across all devices, all teams seamlessly in a matter of seconds. And it was very much tuned to what that experience is, what kind of decisions those people have to make, from taking headshots at the, just when there's a pit stop being taken, to getting stats, to getting recordings, everything communicated live at once from media, social media, as well as to distributors, partners, and everyone else. And so that all teams are synchronous. Dropbox is not changing what they do. They're obviously tuning certain things. When you're at an enterprise level, there's a bit of private labeling, there's a bit of additional features built based upon the client, and they do pay you for that. But the main essence is that it's still Dropbox, but the way it's crafted around an audience is important. And that's not just determined by where they're located, but at the stages they're at, the challenges they face, right? Because they can't, even though they can do that with any drive, Dropbox has its pioneer technology of being fast, seamless, and all of those things. And they're just like, we're not just pioneering everywhere, we're pioneering for you. We're uniquely positioned for you. And that's what makes the whole difference.
Absolutely. Moving on to another question from our audience. How do we scale new products without cannibalizing existing revenue?
So this again goes into, understanding when you're scaling a new product, and revenue are always related, but one thing you need to realize is that scaling and launching new products is based on two very important decisions. One is, are you expanding vertically to support an existing ecosystem, or are you expanding horizontally based upon scaling demand? What this means is, you might have 10,000 users, and from there, 9,000 were who you initially targeted. But recently, you're seeing that there's a growing market who you didn't really build your product out for. While they're able to get the functionalities and everything, they're just settling for it. They're like, we'll make it happen. It's a makeshift DIY solution where they're using 2, 3 systems to make it happen. but there's a growing demand for it. Always make a decision to launch a new product based upon what the market needs, even if it's not your acquired market. What kind of market requirements are growing and scaling? Why are other companies losing users? All of this information is available publicly because most people end up talking about it. We are moving away from XYZ solution because they're just not able to keep up with our demand for XYZ access or features and functionalities. Do you know someone? These tweets, these posts are everywhere. So what you need to do is understand, are you completely stepping away from something you are not doing going to be ever doing, and you're just like, hey, can I get a quick coffee at this place? Or is it really something you're making for a larger impact? And so once you have defined that, hey, we're either expanding into our audience's requirements, our existing audience, and giving them the next solution they need based upon their previous or upcoming decisions after or before utilizing our product, or are we going into this new market that is coming to us or telling us that, hey, we have been using your product like this, but we'd love it if it could do this. And when you see a recurring pattern, that's your cue that there is a market that even who you didn't intend it for sees you as a need to have, not just a nice to have, but a need to have solution. They're making it work. So why don't you go ahead and facilitate something for them? You can either, as Zoom has done, go ahead and launch features such as whiteboard facilitation and all of these things, because they realize that a lot of their users use Miro or other whiteboard tools and everything. And they're like, you know what? I'm pretty sure we can add a whiteboard tool because there's an existing demand. Or do something that really helps you scale into a side market. But you need to be very clear and careful about two things. One, you need to be clear that whatever you're doing is going to be for a different audience, and everything around that needs to change. Even if it's the same product stack, you need to change a few things to make sure it adapts to this audience. But also, this is something that contributes to your long-term vision. It's not just a one and done thing. It's not the Zune from Microsoft. It's something that really helps you commit and go forward with what you're trying to build and deliver.
So we are getting another audience question from the
Mm-hmm.
chat. So this is a question from Sudha that they have a food ordering app called Food Chow. It's similar to Swiggy and Zomato. They have many unique value propositions like 0% commissions, inbuilt websites, POS, customer data, marketing reports, QR ordering, etc., which are presently not available in the other ordering apps. So considering the increase in GST in the food ordering prices, like the macroeconomic policies that just changed right now, they're uniquely positioned to provide a low-cost alternative to the existing apps. So so they're planning for a launch. So how do the headwinds look like for a launch at this stage? And could you provide any strategies for them to, find PMF in
Of
this
course.
current scenario with these, regulatory headwinds shifting?
Of course. So one thing, just to make it very clear about PMF is a constant thing. While you can achieve PMF now, it's something you need to regulate, maintain, because your audience keeps growing, changing, and you keep acquiring new users. But from everything you've shared, couple of things come to my head. One, while you're very much tuned for what the market needs from a internal and bottom line level elements, you're not telling me enough about how are you still uniquely positioned to provide and facilitate what the end users need. The reason companies like Zomato, Swiggy are able to thrive is because it's ease of accessibility for the end user. There are so many companies that come up in the food delivery space that either end up getting acquired or shut down because they just don't have enough access. And so as you're launching this, we call this the pillar and hall theory, which is if you're inviting people to a museum, they can't see the beautiful hallway that you have if there are no pillars to hold up the roof, right? So bring the buyers before you bring the sellers before you invite the buyers over to view what you have to sell and everything. So it's good that you're positioning yourself in a manner to acquire all of these companies. But then I would say localize. We do a approach where anytime we're launching a D2C or a consumer focused brand in general, we try to focus as much as we can on horizontal triangulation. We map out one core location that we need to stand out in that would be very well structured for in your case, higher orders, but also constant demand for new restaurants. And there's a good balance between existing companies that have been there for, many years and new companies that are doing something that there's an audience demand for, which primes them up for, getting a lot of acquisitions quickly. Once you have triangulated that location, expand and set hexagonal points around that triangle to see where is more demand coming from and expand in that direction. But focusing back on the triangulated location you have found, you need to identify one, who are these businesses and where are they focusing on? Because your business works on two ways: for people to buy from your platform so that these buyers are able to make this an ideal recommendation for their users and to let their audience know that, hey, we are here. Because otherwise, nobody else is going to give you that location, that prime real estate on their iPhone and Android phones, just, have another app for one specific location. So access is very important. Once you've identified that, go about positioning yourself very clearly for what you can deliver now. Think of it as how Zepto grew. It was very focused on the Mumbai market, and then it slowly focused on expanding from Mumbai to Bangalore, Delhi, and all these other places. So be very clear on where you need to launch and focus a lot on L&D. Make it easy, make it a no-brainer for your audience, in this case, the businesses, to recommend you. But also focus on providing services, features, and benefits that the end user would want to consider also. Maybe because it's zero commission, you also have lower delivery prices and everything. That's a great thing. Maybe your pricing structure is defined again, not just for short-term wins, but in a long-term manner to keep your users committed to you. And so there are a lot of things that you can do, but you need to be very clear on what the localized market needs. If you're focusing on an audience that is very vague, very diluted, then it becomes very difficult for you to capture that intent. Companies like in India, Namayatra in Bangalore was able to scale very quickly by focusing on what the market needed from the business side, where they're like, hey, we won't take a lot of money from you. You either pay $20 or $25 based upon, the daily requirements and everything. And that's it. And so this primed other auto drivers to go ahead and be like, okay, yeah, we're happy to set this up. We're happy to set ourselves up on your platform because it's more ideal for us. Once they did that, more and more users started seeing banners on vehicles where they're like, hey, we're here. And that made it exciting and enticing for them. I hope that answered your question.
I hope so. One of the other questions, like a follow-up question that I have, to that specific scenario is, what would be your suggestions to, crack the distribution game? Because, when going up against bigger players in a market, like in this, particular example, Swiggy and Zomato, who have like basically infinite pockets, like really deep pockets. So how should you crack the distribution game? Because, for an end user, how should you make, folks aware that a solution like yours exists? Because, folks are bombarded with ads
Yeah.
and, like the positioning of Zomato, Swiggy, and, like million other apps, or,
Yeah.
ONDC for that matter.
Yeah.
So so I'm just generalizing or, taking the focus away from this question. So how
Yeah.
to, they've answered that they have a tie-up with Porter.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, they're a good
Yeah.
company.
So how should you,
Of course, yeah, I
take
got it.
care
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In most companies where there's a B2B solution that's focusing on end consumer satisfaction, let that be Swiggy, Zomato, Uber, Ola, any of those companies, you'll see that most companies often have a couple of these logos already listed. That's because they're often looking for a better handout, a better excuse for them to be like, I can save a few more bucks here. So firstly, if I was in your place, I would really focus by niching down on the category of restaurants I could really focus. So instead of just any and all restaurants, I would maybe initially focus on fine dining restaurants, or maybe restaurants that are looking for a better delivery experience altogether, that don't like to show up on Swiggy, Zomato because of a lot of fallouts or challenges that they see. The one thing you need to know that if a company has more than two review or executable platforms, let that be Swiggy, Zomato saying that, hey, review us on Google and all of these five other platforms and everything, that means that they haven't been satisfied yet. They're still looking for something and they're just like, we'll settle for whatever. Now, in your case, Siddharth, you're already primed in understanding that, hey, zero commissions will help them and all of these things. So you obviously have something that they would need. But on top of that, I would say niche down a bit more and replicate this across. So let's say you do it specifically for Italian restaurants, just for the sake of an example, or just for bakeries and everything. Initially, what will happen is that more and more bakeries, if they're seeing this as a recurring element that they find to be desirable, one thing you need to know is that businesses who sign up on this are willing to wait than the users. A user, if they come on your platform and they don't see any bakeries at all, or if they don't see any restaurants available at all, they're going to uninstall it and it's going to be a very long cycle to reacquire them. Whereas as a business is willing to sign up and wait out maybe a month or two. But there are going to be certain things like some companies like Swiggy, Zomato take an installation fees and everything. Skip out on that right now. Make it easy for them to sign up or reduce that a bit and everything. But this, once you have gotten this, now you have exactly what you can sell. If, let's say, you end up onboarding 2,000 restaurants or even 500 restaurants to begin with, and out of them, 400 are specific in one location, but also are very tailored for a particular cuisine. That's exactly what you need to run ads on. And on top of that, once you have, once you start marketing this, once you start selling this, your companies will be more than happy to refer you. Because at the end of the day, people buy more from referrals than hundreds of ads about the same thing. I'm pretty sure we have all made that decision. We see so many ads, and then even though we have been seeing the same ad, the moment a friend of ours says that, oh, why don't you get it from here? And you're like, is it actually good? It is. Well, let me do that. Let me try it out. Right. And so if the restaurant itself says that we can actually deliver a lot more faster and maintain the food quality if you're buying from this, well, why wouldn't I? Right. Especially like I'm someone who loves eating Japanese food. So anytime someone tells me that my ramen is not going to be just bottled up and everything and delivered to me, but rather it's going to be maintained and I'm still going to have that end-to-end experience, why wouldn't I want to do this? So niching down is very important initially.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Arcui, for that wonderful insight. All right, so we're in the last stretch of the session, and this is one of the questions that got repeated quite a lot in the pre-event questions that we received from our audience. So, how do we test demand without damaging our reputation with enterprise clients if something fails? So, how to maintain those SLAs and those uptime promises in the contracts, and for folks who are figuring out the PMF, yeah, how to, because enterprise, landing those enterprise clients and keeping them, those are two different ball games. So how to test demand without damaging the reputation with enterprise clients?
So what we call these quarterly pilot reviews, and we do this a lot. Let that be a startup that is just launching something new. You'll face the same challenges that your product might not be perfectly optimized to what other enterprises are able to deliver and everything. Or you're an existing client that is delivering a lot of ERP solutions or SaaS and is now expanding into new product offerings. One, obviously, as I've repeated throughout the whole conversation, understand what is it that they need, what is it that they really require, so that as you go and launch this, as you go and deliver this, it is something that sticks. If, let's say, you're delivering a Slack alternative, what else are you doing? Why else, if you've already been delivering a Slack alternative, why is the next product function something unique? Why is it specifically made to support them in the existing ecosystem? What is it that they do post Slack once they're done sending these messages? What is it that they're doing? How are you specifically primed? We worked with this company a while back where we made them a document manager, specifically a Slack, and then a document manager that was mainly for lawyers. So the space, the dashboard was very much made for lawyers to manage all of their contracts, everything, client requirements, whatever litigation is going on and everything. And then the next activation was a document manager where they were launching new documents, building contracts very quickly. And so it became an ideal recommendation. Instead of getting input and then going to Google Docs, working with teams and everything, we built them a very well built document manager that the lawyers were like, yep, this is perfect. And because of the existing ecosystem, it was very much aligned and easy to work with. So anytime we got a comment, that comment would show up in the document manager. Anytime there was a request or lawyers working with their paralegals or whoever they're working with, they're able to work across teams seamlessly. So the products complement each other. So start by doing quarterly pilot reviews once you've identified a demand and requirement. And what a quarterly pilot review is, in its essence, is that we'll give you access to a product for a fraction of the price for 1 quarter. There are going to be challenges. We don't want you to completely rely upon this. We want you to sandbox us. Every time you're doing a task, just have someone from our team execute the same task for you in our platform. Just make some time for us. They will still pay you for it, but just make some time for us and help them visualize without any risk how it is when it's happening on their platform, this new platform. Do this for 1 quarter, get a fraction of the payment, and now two things will happen. Either your product is very bad and they're like, you know what, one and done, no harm, nothing happened because you didn't publicly launch this, you didn't make a huge commitment. And it was a very small amount. It was probably 2, 3K for 1 quarter. And they were like happy about it because it didn't really matter. Or you have been able to deliver something that makes them want to explore this further, that makes them want to commit to this. And then, even if you're not ready to launch just yet, even if you're planning on launching 6 months from now, you already have an LOI with proper intent. Hey, this is a letter of intent where if you can fix XYZ issues, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to sign a new contract for this software. And so quarterly pilot reviews are one of the best ways to test this without damaging your existing brand revenue and setting the parameters very well. If you give someone a great tool and say that it's great, and it messes up, you don't just lose forgiveness points or lead to brand cannibalism, but also you end up damaging your reputation with an industry which is very hard to acquire because enterprise sales to this date has never been able to, is not something you can replicate every now and then because each enterprise is different. So even if you have the best product for the entire industry, with each enterprise, the overall sales cycle is going to be different. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Arcui. This has been great. We're a little bit over time, but I'm pretty sure that our audience has, received immense value from your nuggets of wisdom. All right. So thank you to all of our audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. And a big thanks to Arcui for all of his insights. And just a reminder to be sure to check out PowerToFly's event page for more amazing events like this and job section for great information on open roles across majority of Fortune 500 companies and more than 1,000 companies as well. So, and to all of our audience, thank you for taking the time to be here today. Have a great rest of the day and see you again soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a great
Arcui.
one. Thanks, Samaya, for having me and to the PowerToFly team.
Thank you so much.